All right. I'm going to give you guys a little how-to on drawing. And I kid you not, you can literally draw everything by following these steps. I chose a horse because it's one of the more complex creatures out there as far as musculature and everything. They tend to be a little more difficult to draw, but you can use this to draw literally anything. So the first step you're going to want to keep in mind is find the basic shapes. Oops, sorry, not the S. Find the basic shapes. Woohoo. Wow, okay. Find the basic shapes, then build on them. Then erase what you don't need. And then finally, you add details and shading. And if you follow this process for pretty much everything, it'll save you a lot of time and heartache. So let's get started. So here we have the horse. Oh boy, there's a lot of glare going on here. All right. First one I'm looking for is basic shapes, and I literally mean nothing more complex. Just refrain from doing anything that is more complex than a circle, an oval, a rectangle, a square, or a triangle. And in some cases, you can do something maybe that's like manipulated. So if you do like a rectangle that like kind of tapers a little or something, you can do that. But you really don't want to get anything more complex than that. And the easiest way to do it is find it in your reference picture first. So I usually try to go for the biggest thing I see first. And the first thing I see here is how big an oval-like his belly is right here. This is an expo marker, which you will be able to use if you so choose, and they'll erase right off. And then I see another oval here, and then a skinnier one right here. And I see a triangle for the neck. Now the face, I usually like to do a little more fine details in the face, so I do smaller shapes. So I'll do like a circle, and then this kind of like trapezoid sort of shape. Okay, now for the legs. This one's usually a beast. Well, and let's not forget ears. Little ovals for ears. And then for the legs, I'm gonna go and do an oval here. Do a circle for that knee joint. Do a circle for the ankle joint here. And then do a triangle for the hoof. Okay. And then another rectangle, circle, triangle. This one's going to be another nice oval, a nice little circle for that joint, a circle here, connect those two, triangle, circle, oval, triangle, and then you get some grass, so you're not going to see that foot. So that's basically what you need to start. I mean, you can go in and you can add the mane later, and that's like just a nitty-gritty detail. So let's shift my paper a bit here. All right, first steps, basic shapes. All right, I have my basic shapes down here, and all I need to do is copy them onto my paper. And I'm going to use a different color of colored pencil for this so that you can see my process a little bit when it's finished. So the best thing to do is to reproduce what you see as best as you can, obviously. And to do that, I'm going to, let's see. I want to start with this oval right here. So I'm going to pencil in this oval. That's pretty good. And I noticed too that this oval is at a slight tilt. It's not straight, it's kind of tilted. And a good way to check tilt is just use your pencil like this and go boop, 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 boop. Oh, I got a nice tilt here. And you want to start drawing very, very, very lightly. Now I'm going to add the next oval. And this is another key point I want to add after details and shading is you have some of these things here. You want to do what we call proportion. And proportion is the size of one thing compared to another. So I'm going to figure out what the size of this oval is compared to this oval. So if I take this, I'm just kind of like hold my fingers, or sometimes it's easier to use a pencil. Just kind of like hold it, and like, okay, now it's that big, and now I can hold it up and compare it to that. And so I know that the length of this, which is this, is about maybe 3/4. So, you know, 1, 2, 3, a little over 3/4 of the length of that. So now knowing that, I'm going to go over here and go, okay, what is 3/4 of this? About 1, 2, 3, and then a little over that. So I know that that is the distance I need to use. I'm also going to check the angle too, because this one's at a slight angle. So I can bring this right here. Boop. And I know that angle, and I know it's supposed to be about this long. I'll make 2 little marks here. And I can, oh, well, there's a tricky thing I just forgot to do. The next one is alignment. Things are going to look really wonky if they don't line up where they're supposed to. So I can see right now that the top, like the crest of this oval matches up with the crest of that oval. So I want to make sure that this crest is actually down here. We should put this one down there. And now I can draw my oval. I can also check to see how fat my oval is. My oval is about that big, which is about half the size of this, how that one is. So half of that, oh, good, I got it right. Okay, next oval, you follow pretty much the same process. Check to see how wide it is. Okay, it's about that big compared to that, so again, about 3/4. So 3/4 of this is about there. And my angle, boop, 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 angle. And lining up, I can see that it's slightly above this part of his back. So again, if it's like it was 3/4, that's right, yeah. And then I'm going to put it slightly above. So measure 3/4 from there down here and try and get that angle. I need to push that angle up a bit there and do that there, and I can just tell that it's already pretty skinny there. Yeah, so it goes above there, and this one stays pretty much lined up with the crest of that one. Okay, and it's also, this one's fatter, and I can tell this one is skinnier. All right, now for the head, let's see how big that triangle is. It's about, again, a little over 3/4 of the size of his belly here. So I'm going to get to 3/4 of that. And then check that angle. Boop, 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 boop. Pew. And put that angle there. You know, here's another thing too with proportion and alignment is angles. So I'm going to see where the bottom of his neck aligns, and I can just do that by doing this. Okay, just pulling my pencil up and seeing where it aligns. And I can see that it basically like slices the intersection of these two right in half. So I know that his neck is going to meet at the intersection of these two right here. And that way I can just draw that triangle there, and then I know that it meets with the top of that oval right here. So, yep. Still pretty simple, still shapes. You can handle this. All right. Then this circle is about, goodness, I'm going to say probably half the size of this oval. So half the size of this oval. Oops. And then bring it up here, and that's going to be my circle. And then the width of his nose compared to the circle part of his skull is actually about the same size. So I'm going to go measure that and then go over here. And check your angles. So my angle right here is this, and here. And my angle, this is here. Basically just meets up with his head there. Sweet. And then you can just, it's really easy just to kind of toss in those ears there. But I'm checking where in the circle they are, and I just realized that this one is a lot closer to this one than I drew it. And that's a pretty easy fix. So I'll just put it closer. And you can just forget about that. So, all right, I want to make sure you can still see everything. All right. So as to prevent this from becoming a super long tutorial, I'm just going to do the top part of this body here. So now that I've got my, as you can see, my basic shapes right here, I've reproduced them. Now all I need to do is build on them, and what I mean by build on them is basically kind of like connecting the dots. Like this is more like a skeleton, and now I need to put the skin on this basic shape skeleton. So I will pull in a lovely little red pencil for this. Okay. Now for the skin part, this is a little bit tricky because there tends to be a little more bumps than just basic ovals. The nice thing is you have the basic ovals though, so you know, okay, this is what should be on there, and this is where it should go, and this is how big it should be. Now you're just getting in those nitty-gritty details. So I'm going to give you another rule. I call it my 2/3 rule. If you did the blind contour with us earlier, you'll know that you should be looking at your picture. So your eyes should be looking at this picture 2/3 of the time, and only 1/3 of the time looking at this. Because your brain will forget really fast what all of these little bumps and curves look like. So you can't see my eyes, but you're just going to have to imagine that I am constantly looking at this and I'm barely looking at this. And that's going to make sure that my work looks so much better. So to start off with, I can see right now that his shoulder goes a little bit above that oval that I first drew, and then it meets and kind of, like if you erase this, it kind of comes in, bam, like that, and then up. So I have this interesting kind of curve here, and then this bump where his shoulder is, and it goes above that rectangle. I mean, sorry, not the rectangle, that oval. It's been a long day. So I know that it's going to be somewhere around here. And again, always draw light until you get it right. And then I see it comes down at that angle, so I want to make sure I get that angle. And then it meets with his body right there. Let's see if I can get this where you can still see. So it meets with his body right here. And then it begins to slope up. And then right before it hits this back oval right here, it has a little peak, and then it comes down again. So right here, see in between these two circles, I drew this little bump. And then it's going to come back down on his haunches. And that's where his tail's going to be. And you can just kind of, tail, and put that there. Okay, next part. Now that I've got that line, I can go ahead and do his neck. Now, let's see. So his neck comes in a little bit, it's kind of like a curve like this, instead of like that straight triangle I had. So I know that based off of this, I just have to do this. So it's going to have a nice little curve. Like that. And then, let's erase a bit more. His head is going to kind of meet right here. And then I'm seeing a lot of bumps in his head right here. There's this little tiny one, there's this one that kind of just very, very subtle, and then this one. And this one fits best in that circle that I used, so I'm going to have that circle. And it's not even like a perfectly round bump. It's kind of like it has almost a slight angle to it, so I'm going to get that angle. And then this one. I just realized he almost looks like a unicorn with that scratched out ear. Anyways, so moving on. And here. And then I see, like if this is where his muzzle was before, he only has, the bottom half of his muzzle, his nose, is about 2/3. So remember, I'm still doing my proportions. I'm still measuring. So his muzzle's right here, about 2/3 of this rectangle. So kind of like right there. And that's where that bottom comes out, comes in. And you're constantly checking to make sure that your shapes are right, the right size, at the right contour, and in the right place. He's got this little bump right here. Boop, boop. And let's erase that. And then after that bump, it just smooths out. It's a nice smooth curve up to the top of his nose. And then the top of his head just has the slightest, ever so slight curve in. And then you got a bump for his eye right here, and that bump kind of lands like maybe right there on his head. And then it flattens out again before it meets with this ear. And I'm just going to look at that ear shape really fast. And I noticed that this part of his ear does not perfectly touch that angle right there. It kind of stops, and then you have that angle. So I made sure to get that here. Boop, boop. And he's got some hair. Lovely, lovely hair. Oh, hair. What a lovely pony. And then I see this little, this is kind of like an S curve almost. And I'm using my blue lines as a framework, so I know I don't want to go too tall or too big. There you go, that. Now, something I forgot to do earlier was when I drew my circle, so let's pencil that circle in again. When I drew my circle, I forgot to mark where his eyes go. And the easiest thing to do that is just do a line. And then you can see, okay, this line is a little, like a smidgen over half of the way up. So let's get my blue pencil again. And so I'm looking at his circle, and it's a little, just a tiny smidgen over half. Ironically, also where I drew that bump before. See, things line up. It's the alignment thing. So I know that his eye needs to go here. And if I really need to go even further, I could draw another line where they intersect. And I can tell you pretty much, his eye pretty much shows up right in between his ears. So it's almost like pew, right through the ears. So pew. Now that's where it goes. And then you can study his eye shape. His eye is kind of a circle with a little bit there, and then it comes up like that, and then rounds out like that. And he's got a little eyelid too. You also want to get his nose. I see his nose pretty much lines up that way, so I want it to be right here, and it lines up with the point on the bottom of his lips right there. And it's kind of a lopsided oval. And then his mouth kind of just tucks right there. So there you go. There's his head. And I guess we can make him a unicorn because reasons. Boop, boop, boop. Magic. Oh, wow. Okay, magical unicorn. So, got that taken care of. Now I need to move on to his neck. And I can see right now from this line that was still there is that I'm going to come a little bit in front of that line and then back into it. So come out in front, right where it meets up here, and then come back in. But it's ever just so slight. So it's noticing those little things, guys. It's going to make a huge difference. I can still tell right now too that my width of my neck is about that wide. And compare that to even just like this part of his body. I can tell it should be a third of that. And so I'm a little up short. So I can kind of come in and you just forget that old line and fix that because I came a little up short. So constantly measure yourself. So you realize that his neck needs to come a little bit more like that. All right. Whew, getting on here. All right. I also see here that this comes in front and it's just a nice curve with a little more curve at the bottom and a little straighter at top. And it comes out in front of this line by like that much. So straight at the top and then curves a little more at the bottom. And this is where his leg starts, but we won't get to see much of that. You can kind of, if you want, like put a line here for his muscles and stuff. Now for his belly. His cute little belly. Well, I guess you can put part of his leg here too, because he's got this little thing comes here. Oh, see, I started going too far down, so I realized he needs to go more like this. So I'm gonna make sure I get the angle right. And then this part of his elbow, it starts where that oval was, but then it comes out a little. It's kind of like an elbow, and then it comes in. And I just want you to notice that every once in a while I will do that like repeated kind of thing. But one mistake that a lot of students make is they will do like these little hairy things, like they'll do that. Oh, let's try this up here. I'm drawing a cat, see? See, Miss Gates, I'm drawing a cat. When you're drawing a cat, the fluffies are fine. But if you're trying to do something that's smooth, you don't want it to look fuzzy like that. So just be brave with your lines. Just be brave. Just draw one line. Just be brave with them. Don't be like, oh, I don't know if I want to be this line here. Don't do that. Be brave. Be brave, my friends. Okay, so I got his elbow here. Sorry you didn't see that before. And then his stomach kind of isn't round up all the way up here. It kind of starts like this. And comes like that. And then it comes up into his leg right here. And that is, ironically, it's kind of more straight, less curved. So I'm going to get that straight part, and then it curves. And then get his cute little booty back here. Again, you might want to say, oh, that's just a curve, but I see that it's got like more of an angle and then a curve. So angle, a little bit, and then a curve. And notice where the curve ends up. And there's his back contour. So there's the angle, there's the curve. And I can even go so far as to bring this down here, like that, where that goes. And yeah, so now you've got the top part of him, and then you can add hair. And when you're adding hair, don't think, oh, I've got to do all the little tiny lines like that. Just think, oh, it's a shape with the really ragged edges. So I'm looking at his shape here, and I see there's like a spray of stuff right here, and it kind of comes out, and then in, and then a little bit back out again. And there's like a little tuft right here too. And there's his hair. Here's his cute little tail. And there you go. I mean, obviously I cut him off for the sake of this demo, but this is how you draw. And you can literally draw anything just by following these shapes, just like that, and also having a reference picture. So you have an assignment to either do a demo like this, you can video it, or you can draw it where you do like the steps, like, okay, start with this circle and then draw that circle again and then add this on it. Or you can do a fear monster where you combine 3 different animals that represent your fears. All right, well, check in out. Shoot me an email if you need any help. And you guys are awesome. Make good art. Bye.